Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. Greenhouse Grower's February cover story features the team at Plantpeddler in Cresco, Iowa. During my interview with the Plantpeddler team, we talked about a wide range of topics, and I left the conversation with way too much information to include in one article. So here's your chance to hear the entire discussion. We mostly talked about Plantpeddler's summer variety and winter poinsettia trials, why Plantpeddler owner Mike Gooder is a perfect advocate for the floriculture industry, and how partnerships with technology suppliers can go a long way. Keep listening to learn more. I should note that because we were talking as a group, some of the audio may be a bit muffled in spots, but we hope you learn a lot from this great conversation with one of the industry's most innovative growing operations. Let's start with the plant trials that take place at Plantpeddler, both the summer plant trials and then the poinsettia trials. If you could talk about, how long those have been going on, what are some of your main goals with the trials and the benefits that those bring both to your company and then to participants in the trials as well?
So as part of the founding history of the company, we have always believed in trialing and testing. The foundational principle is that consumer success equals our success. So whether we were running it through our retail store, through a wholesale customer when we started, more recently, last couple decades, servicing growers, we always have a drive to make sure we're producing plants that perform ultimately the best for the end user, the consumer. And to do that, it really requires always analyzing what your current benchmarks are and then looking at what's out there that you can improve upon. So we've always done quite a bit of testing and trialing. It's really when we went public is when the awareness of what we were doing. That happened when we were running Dooman USA, when we helped get Dooman started in the North American market. The first official summer trial variety day was in 2005. I think we had 200 varieties. I looked back and checked. 200 varieties that were in trial that year, and it was quite humorous when I was reading it because we even had things like seed geraniums in the trials. Now it's an all vegetative trial except for maybe one oddball, Sunfinity. So that part of the evolution of Variety Day, going from a couple hundred varieties to where are we at now?
1,500.
Yeah, 1,500 varieties that we trial. Hopefully we can figure out a way to expand more because we have opportunity to have more genetics. But that outreach was to get the breeding community connected to Plantpeddler and connected to our growers and retailers. And that's really what the ultimate mission is how can we bring together the community, the people that are creating the genetics and the broker salespeople that support the system, growers and retailers all together in a platform where we educate and we bring knowledge to them about what's best performing, introduce new genetics, really give that touch point for people, especially here in the upper Midwest, to get together. Poinsettia trials started a bit more casually. We were testing poinsettias again going back to when we were in Dooman, so that's early 2000s. One of our salesmen, Gary Portnoy, brought down a group of growers from Minneapolis, St. Paul area, from the greater metro, and we walked through and showed them a bunch of varieties that we were testing. So this was really about 2012 or so when the first unofficial poinsettia variety day happened. About 2014, 15, we really made it more of a public trial and really started outreach. So about a decade that we've been working and developing the platform we now have, which is Poinsettia Variety Day. And again, connecting all of the global breeders, a vast amount of the commercial varieties on the market, and doing a grow-out trial that represents commercial production, northern climate, natural season, which is a lot of the way people grow up here in the northern half of the United States are under very similar conditions to what we produce on. Each year is a different trial, whether you're talking summer trial or you're talking about the poinsettia trial because of the variable conditions of the Midwest. So this year was extremely warm and bright, and we've had years when the poinsettia trial has finished the last 4 or 6 weeks in the dark. Rachel, since you do a lot of trial stuff?
I take care of the summer trials, and so we do, now we're up to 1,500 varieties, 900 pots and 600 baskets. We start in March with the unrooted cuttings, and we'll stick them into a 3.5-inch pot, carry them on until, plant them into their finished pots at the end of May, bring them out to the trial gardens the first part of, end of June, and then just kind of carry it on. When we produce those products, we try not to do much chemical application or, fungicide. Well, fungicide, treat them like we usually do in the greenhouse. We try to treat them all similar because we don't want to have to do anything special to them, and then, the other growers don't know. We want it to grow like for a consumer more than anything else.
And I think for all of our trials, it's a real trial. It's how a normal consumer or grower would treat it. We try not to give special treatment to certain varieties so they get the end result that everything is perfect. So you can walk through the summer trial or through the poinsettia trial, and you can see kind of just, by the plant habit and what the plants are, kind of what the dogs are, because they aren't getting special treatment. Yeah, you can look through the catalog from any breeder, and every picture of every crop is perfect, but until you get it into a real grower's hands, you really get to stress that crop or see, where the downfalls are. So our ability and our, our process through the trial is try not to give special treatment to that process, so the real consumer, the real guys on site can see, how it performs in their greenhouse, or how it looked, when they're growing it. So
all the poinsettias are grown in a 6.5-inch pot, so we've got varieties in there that should not be grown in a 6.5-inch pot, either whether they're vigorous or whether they have a low vigor. Something like Red Elf in a 6.5-inch pot is not quite going to make it. But then, that way, obviously, we're not adding time to it. We're not adding short day, long days, or anything to natural development of that plant.
So what's the process for breeders to participate in the trials then? What do they have to do?
I work with the breeders early on the spring trials to book all of the varieties that are in our current catalog. Plus, I work with them for any new introductions that are coming, and sometimes there's even stuff that's not going to be introduced yet that year or the following year. Sometimes there's things that are pre-intro to the trial. So I work with them ahead, so we get everything booked out to come in for the weeks that we need it to start. And that's for both the spring trials and the poinsettia trials. For the poinsettia trials, we actually just give them a full list of whatever they want to submit to the trial, and they can submit whatever they want. For the spring trial, we actually ask them to submit everything that we have in our current catalog, plus anything that we're planning to add to our next catalog. So anybody who comes in that's going to be purchasing cuttings or young plants from us will have an opportunity to see a product that they're going to be buying live.
Okay.
And that's kind of how we limit it, so it doesn't get too overboard. We don't have seed varieties in our trial gardens. Generally, there's maybe 1 or 2 that are out there just because they're Plantpeddler wholesale favorites. But everything's geared towards the young plants and what we can offer to the customers.
Did you see any trends this year, and not necessarily in specific varieties, but in things that attendees were most interested in that you can, then start, following up on what you're seeing that's drawing the most attention from them?
I would say we keep getting more Diplodemias, Mandevilla items. I think growers are starting to get a lot more interested in that product. The Trixies, the Multis, people have been very interested in those because it's a lot easier plant for them to handle. Most growers don't have enough people on their planting line, so it's much more easier for them to just grab a multi-liner 3 items in one pot, and then they just drop it in into the basket and it's good to go. So we had quite a few of those this year. The begonias, a couple of different types of begonias instead of just your Humalis begonias, but your cascading begonias and whatnot were really good for production.
Every
Go ahead, Jason.
every trial, the first thing that when we interact with people, everybody asks, "What's cool and new?" I think every trial I've ever been at, I've had 10 people ask me that same question. So that's one thing everybody's looking for, and that's one thing even in the poinsettia trials. We have some private breeder trials, and so we can't show them to other people outside of the breeders themselves. But that's one thing that the trials, I guess, what people are always looking for is something new and cool. And of course, with the the genetic transgression or evolution, I guess, there's always something cool and new every year, and it's fun to see how they produce. Some of them don't always produce well in the conditions we're talking about. They maybe take some special treatments in production greenhouse, but obviously trying to relay that to growers.
We make discoveries also. So an example of that, Selecta worked with USDA to get offshore production of dianthus. So we had a large cross-section of the new selected dianthus program in the trial. And I think we all walked away from the trial gardens this year saying there's a genus that's been underrepresented, and we were blown away by the overall garden performance. So it allows us an opportunity to help introduce new product because we see it firsthand. We saw the performance in trial gardens. It gave us confidence that it's going to perform for the consumer, for the growers. So, for us, it's equally as valuable. We have the opportunity to be in the garden, all the way up to freeze up in the fall. We get out there as a group, and I think, really helps us as a team develop the best program for our growers.
Oh, sure. And I would imagine too, over the past couple of years, with the pandemic, that I would guess it's changed not just how you conduct the trials, but then maybe seeing the emergence of different categories over the past couple of years.
Well, I've noticed that a few things that we've been doing a lot of trialing on over the years, like dahlias, for instance, is one that there's been a lot of trouble with some of the series of dahlias that have been out over the last several years, because if they form tubers, it takes away from their energy, and they can get a dahlia decline and not be able to bloom or flower anymore. And we've seen a lot of new series come through that we've been able to test and give us more confidence in dahlias. And dahlias have been a growing, on the retail side, we've got a lot of customers that are selling more dahlias than they used to, from the vegetative side. And that's one that we've continued to just every year trial more, and now we're confident to put them in the flower beds too. We've seen some great new varieties that are doing well in the beds, and it's just great to see things that are, as Jason mentioned, evolving and growing as a cultivar, so they can be more useful and easier to grow for the end consumer.
Yeah, to a point where even dahlias, for a significant amount of time, we did not even want them in the greenhouse for production, and now they have they're in combos, they're in standalone pots, and we can fill them with confidence.
Right. I mean, consumers want them, and it's very nice that we're finally having more varieties that they can actually have success with.
When we do our beds and our pots, we'll do the same items in pots. We'll do 900 pots, but we also put quite a few items in beds that the companies want us to use. And so we did put dahlias in beds, and they did perform along with some begonias, which most people don't expect begonias to grow in full sun. And we put begonias in full sun, and they did phenomenally well. We also did the dianthus in beds instead of just in the pots. That kind of sparked our interest in them because they did so well in the beds along with the pot. So they were treated just, like a regular flowering bed. So got them in
Nice.
both situations.
So have you already started to look ahead to next year then, and any adjustments or changes that you might make coming into next year's trials?
More room?
So you want to tell you put some more room in?
More room.
More room,
Couple
more beds. Yeah. We're filling in a pond. A water.
Yeah, we like, you know, when we did our last build, we laid out a new gardens, and of course, you know, we're pretty much outgrown it, so we're trying to come up with thoughts and theories on how to expand upon what we do, because it does serve a valuable purpose, both as for us as a company, but for our users, our growers and brokers, and an opportunity for the breeders to connect. So, you know, our mission is to make sure we're doing the best we can. And part of what we do on both events is really focus in on education. That's an important piece of it. So we do formal seminars during the Variety Day event. We do some very good touch points with all of the breeders talking, and you've, I'm sure, seen on our videos, presenting new varieties, presenting their favorites. So, you know, it's the educational side of what the importance is of all of this. And in the end, it's not just about growing some pots of flowers in a garden. How we connect the dots to help our growers be more successful, how we take, you know, what we have here at Plantpeddler and use it for the benefit of everyone that's involved. So
The speakers we have everybody from university experts. You've got chemical representatives. We've had last year, I think we had the grower of the year, a grower from up in Minneapolis, come down and do a speech. So you've kind of got like live world information coming at you. I mean, you can listen to information sometimes, and sometimes it gets to be the same over and over. Then I think we do a good job of bringing in, you know, real world expertise to people that attend.
That's great. That's a nice way to do things. And you know, Mike, as you're talking about education there, with that, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about, you know, education when it comes to advocacy for the industry. And I know, Mike, you've been a big part of this, you know, whether it's working through, you know, panel discussions with American Hort and some of their activities, and then also, you know, obviously meeting on a regular basis with local and state lawmakers in Iowa. Like for you to talk about, you know, why that's important to you and to the company and to the industry. And then coming out of that, you know, why this should be important to other growers and how they can get involved, even if it's something that, you know, they might not be within their comfort zone to, you know, get outside of the greenhouse and talk to folks outside of the industry.
yeah, it is passion. It's important. For us as an industry, we're not relevant unless there's awareness of horticulture. So in the great state of Iowa, I love my state, it's a commodity crop industry. But we've been able to, through our senators, our representatives, both on a national and on a state level, our governor, especially our Secretary of Agriculture, we've been able to bring them all here and see what a technologically advanced greenhouse does. The revenue stream off of where we're sitting was a cornfield. The revenue stream with us in greenhouse production is thousands-fold more return. Also, this cornfield created no jobs, maybe one or two people for a few hours during the year. We've created 100 jobs, more than 100 jobs. So getting that message so that you become relevant, it's so important as an industry that we elevate the presence of the impact that we have, both from an economic impact and what we can drive. There's you know, very large dollar impact industry. We create good jobs for people. It's, you know, people enjoy working in a greenhouse because you're working with plants. It's a great environment to work within, and bringing that knowledge to people outside of our circle. Those of us that are in the industry, and you found your way into the horticulture industry, Brian. I'm sure you weren't raised in it.
No.
None of us sitting at this table were raised in the greenhouse industry, yet we're all passionate. Once you can spread that passion.
John was.
John. I get John. I forgot about John. He didn't have a choice.
He was stuck in soil.
Yeah. I got pictures of him with bassinets sitting in the greenhouse while I was pouring concrete. No, it's so important that we talk about what we do, the beauty that we bring to people's lives, in depending on your operation, the beautiful landscapes you create, the flowers you grow, maybe it's food and vegetable production. There's so much diversity in horticulture, yet we don't talk about ourselves. And so reaching out to people, having an opportunity, and advocacy is grassroots. That's bringing in a Vogue Ag class. That's bringing in a gardening club. It doesn't have to be on a grand scale. Getting your county supervisors, your city council people, your mayors, we do all those things because when we make them more aware of what we're about and make them friends of Plantpeddler, it raises the stature of Plantpeddler, it raises the awareness of horticulture. One of the most recent events we did, which was a real payback for me, was Educate the Educators, where we worked with State of Iowa, Iowa Department of Agriculture, Iowa State University, and we brought in high school vocational ag teachers from 50, I think, 8 schools, like 80 people in attendance. We had workshops, forums, trial garden experience. We gave them a full day of learning. We had a team of industry people that come in for our variety day event that volunteered to come in a day early to help educate the educators. And everybody involved walked away feeling really good about what we just had happen. That's cool stuff. That's really, and you know it's going to go back and it's going to influence kids. And those kids might end up in horticulture.
So do you have internship programs then for those who might have that interest and help foster the next generation of folks working in the industry?
Yeah, yep. So we do offer mainly local schools. We pull a few kids out of Iowa State, but we are open to internships. Summer internships. We've done 6-month internships. It's a great experience because I was one of those people that you sit through a class, horticulture class, and you learn about it in the textbooks, and you watch PowerPoints and this and that and the other. But until you get real firsthand experience in a production greenhouse, it's an eye-opening experience, and it's good for the people that have never been, in that situation, right? Yeah, they got some interest in horticulture, they want to grow some plants, but when you step into a facility or an operation like ours, it really is an eye-opening experience that it's bigger than just a small garden shop, and with the industry as a whole is a lot bigger than just the mom and pop shop down the road. So we open our doors for internships, and like Dad mentioned, we bring in school tours, either high school or there's college that's come to visit. We're an open door policy at that point because we want to create the awareness for those people and for those kids so they can see that there's opportunity in horticulture, in greenhouse. A lot of them aren't even aware that there is. So yeah, we're open door on internships and in any educational experience where anybody wants to come in and see what we're up to. So
that's one thing with the diversity at in the greenhouse, in the production greenhouse, there's people that come in. I mean, there's an entire shipping department at Plantpeddler. Yes, they do some horticultural activities or procedures during the slower times of shipping to get to that point. But so there's individuals that come in. I think we've had a few come in where everybody thinks it's all hands-on planting, watering, growing, but there's so many other departments, whether it's shipping or hard good acquirements or decisions on what is combinations you put together. So that you bring in those interns or the high school age kids, they see a lot more of what is available within the greenhouse. Even designs and marketing, all that stuff.
That's a great point too, because I was going to say, I wonder, I got to imagine there's, for folks who are looking to get into this industry, but not necessarily have to be involved directly with the plants. There's got to be opportunities, as you said, in shipping, but anything from marketing to human resources to social media to anything like that.
There's a lot more diversity within it than staying in the end of a shovel or, strictly plant work. And with the technology we have here, we've elevated that awareness. A lot of people that we have that come in have a degree in some other aspect of education, and they quickly adapt. So they may come with a technology degree. We have a grower here now that backdoored into horticulture, and he came from the IT side. So really works well when you have as much technology in the building as we do. Another aspect of our internships here, though, is we've, it started, 10 years ago about? 10 years ago, we had some J1 kids, J1 visa, which is an international internship, came in from the Ukraine. And since that period, we've had 100 kids or more from all over the world that have come to Plantpeddler for an internship, which might be 9 months to a year. Typically, they're either in college. A lot of times they are between a bachelor and a master's degree, so they have education. And they've really changed the culture of Plantpeddler. We're a Euro-American, Northeast Iowa rural, and all of a sudden you have this diversity of the world. As I tell people, potlucks at Plantpeddler used to be tater tot casserole and goulash, and now it's foods of the world because of the diversity that's here. And some of them have found ways, and we've worked with State Department, et cetera, that they've become legal citizens of the United States. And have continued to contribute and have really helped diversify our community. So it's been a really cool impact and what it's done to transform Plantpeddler into, because we are a global company, I think our staffing also represents a global company.
That's great. That's a great story to tell. Just to kind of close out the advocacy portion of the conversation here then. So what advice, if any, would you have to, another grower in this industry who, when it comes time to get out of their greenhouse bubble and talk to folks outside of agriculture, what advice would you have to them if that isn't necessarily part of their comfort zone?
Yeah, it's not hard to do. I think everybody thinks it's a big mountain you have to climb. Open invitations. Politicians need to have touch points, need to be aware of their constituents. And you can start very small, start with your county supervisor, rather than, getting to the point where you have some need and ask, bring them in and get them aware of what you're doing right away. Work your way up. Your state and local senators, they want to make sure that they're in tune with their constituents. It's good PR. Always we try to invite the media, any event where we have political leaders here, we make sure that we get the good side of the free press. I mean, anybody that knows us, we love good free press. We try to make sure we're out there with press releases all the time. So, you can raise the awareness of your company, but you also can raise the awareness of the industry and the involvement you have. And as it compounds, it just becomes its own entity. In the case of the state of Iowa, we had I think it was Lieutenant Governor Adam Gregg came up, and then he goes back and he tells the Secretary of Agriculture needs to come up, who then tells the head of Iowa Economic Development, Debbie Reynolds, that she needs to come to Plantpeddler, and pretty soon the governor is at Plantpeddler because they all talk. And so you really, if you get them excited, and it just compounds, and it's not hard to make that initial outreach, and just any form of outreach works. So it can be as simple as that garden club. It can be Senator Chuck Grassley. Once you start reaching out, it becomes very easy. It's that first step is just like, okay, I want people aware of horticulture. I want to make them aware of Plantpeddler. And it just becomes one step after another. I am going to give a talk at Columbus at Cultivate on this subject matter. I'm not sure the time and date's been set, but I believe it's on Monday morning. Talk a little bit about advocacy and how people can get involved with advocacy. So we'll touch bases and Cultivate on this subject.
When it comes time for that, we'll be sure to promote that talk as much as we can, because it's critical, and it's you can go to all the pest management and irrigation and those types of talks, but this is something that I think everybody needs to hear more about. So that's great. I'll shift a little bit into the last big part of the conversation that I want to go over, and that's kind of going back to within Plantpeddler, the innovation in technology that's taken place. Let's start with over the past year or so, what are the biggest innovations that your team has implemented? And then from that, what you might have planned going into 2024 and then beyond that?
Well, I mean, we've done, quite a bit, not just in the last year, but over the last few years of stepping up our technology and our advancements inside, Plantpeddler. A lot of it, when we look at the grand scheme is efficiency driven. Right? Everybody's in the same labor crunch. So when we look at it, it's how do we make the people we have as efficient as possible. So, we look at simple things like hanging basket systems, right? We were married to Echoes and things like for our hanging basket
Stationary systems.
Stationary systems, right? So it was old technology. It was good technology, but with our new expansion, it gave us an opportunity to take a step back and say, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this. So we looked into the FormFlex hanging basket system. It did that installation. We married it at that time with the Oasis water by weight, which at that time, I think we were the first or second to put those two pieces together. And in our mind, it was a match made in heaven. Gave us the opportunity to really utilize that overhead space to the most efficient way as possible, not only in turns and growing, but the labor efficiency, right? When we look at the man hours of hanging baskets and harvesting those baskets at time of ship, triple, double.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the pulling and rehanging and even the turns on that basket system compared to what we have, we were probably at 4 to 5 turns within March to June growing season on the new systems, where in the past we were lucky if we got 2. And also those 2 turns probably at the same time probably took more labor than the 5 or 6 turns we get at this time with the water by weight and FormFlex system. And another thing is enjoyment. The biggest thing that I see in production is the enjoyment of the people working with it compared to the old systems. It's actually fun for them. It really is. You see, their production time is increased. They like doing it. It's not a hard job. It made it easier for them, and it's the plants coming off of it too. Same with the water by weight. They're almost all uniform, which uniformity for me is an ultimate goal in the greenhouse. Good looking uniformity. Systems like that are absolutely have been a joy to implement in the greenhouse.
And we hear about that so much. Sorry, go ahead.
So it's even some small things. We motorized all of the Autobahns, the A-Track, Rollabahns, whatever you want to call them, that move all our container system around. And Nikki can probably speak better on it than I can, but just that one simple thing of taking people on one end and sending to people on the other end made a huge difference in our efficiency, because we can move everything on the container system, Plantpeddler. I'm amazed how often things are in a different place. Like, it was there yesterday, where the heck did it go? Because these guys are constantly moving product to the right environment to do that piece of the production side, especially when rooting season, everything is in constant motion, and that requires a lot of people, and we were able to take that number and cut it in half in what it took us to move crop around. So the incremental steps, a dumb one, right, is like, instead of pushing brooms, we get sweepers, right? And everybody likes to jump on the rider and go clean floors. We love it clean Plantpeddler, and so it's much easier if a simple investment of a sweeper that improve. We're always testing. Right now, these 2 characters are working on a new boiler that we're testing for biotherm. That's been interesting, to say the least. But we're out, we're helping one of our key partners, Biotherm, in testing and a prototype new boiler system. That's part of what we do, because that's what we're about, right? We're about trials and innovation and research. The biorational side of what we do, that Jason mentioned a little bit about the talks this year, was all about a biorational approach. Not necessarily taking conventional pesticides out, but how do we grow better with other tools than straight conventional? So working with things like Evo Factor, and give them a list.
Bio Super Sow, Full Power. What's the Microbe Remedy? That's a big one we've been working with. And some of that stuff, it's, that we talk about trials in the genetic side. We also do quite a few trials on this side as well, with the growing elements, the applications and their lack thereof, or simplifying it, or maybe a little bit more bio-friendly. But we're not exclusive to bio or traditional chemical. We try to combine the two with more, kind of an integrated management between the two. Like we get lists from a lot of the experts of what is compatible with biomaterials, whether it's the beneficials that are coming in and what chemicals might be compatible with them. And then we also, another thing we try and do with that is the liners that we send out, I want to make sure that if they're going to a 100% bio environment, that we have not put anything on them that will compromise their desired results at that time. So same thing, we're constantly working with people, experts in the industry, to make sure that all that criteria is met.
Yeah, so a lot of times when we talk technology and people come into Plantpeddler, it's like, wow, cool, you got ISO robots, you got the Metazet FormFlex, you got this, you got that. The backside of what we think is just important technology is what we're doing on R&D work to produce a better liner that, at the end of the day, performs better for our customer, because that's the ultimate goal. And so a lot of that isn't phase forward. We're constantly trialing new rooting mediums, and we just completed this fall a complete trial out on just rooting media to make sure we're using the best media that performs most likely in all greenhouses to perform in whatever substrate they're using. So it's that constant step of improvement and innovation that we feel for our long-term survival and leadership in the industry, we have to make those investments. So it's an ongoing process always.
We're doing some simple things right now. They're not tech savvy so much. A little bit is where we put in some extra, we split some curtains in some houses to give extra light management. We're putting in additional lighting in a zone right now. We put in some additional drop curtains to isolate zones for cool and warm. So they don't, it's hard to get, without a definitive line in a greenhouse, it's hard to get a 5 or 10, 15, never a 15-degree differential on each side of a curtain when it's an open environment. So even those aren't real tech savvy improvements, but they make big differences for what we're trying to do.
That's right. Drive us to the highest quality liner or finished plants that we can do. And I think, I asked Jason and Nikki and the guys out growing, it's, what can we do to improve? What pieces can we add to the puzzle to drive our quality even higher than where we're sitting right now? So it's continual improvement, and it's how many different ways can we skin a cat, but we want the best results at the end of it. So it's fun. It's a challenge every year, and no 2 years are the same. So it's every year we revisit, and it's like, okay, what went right and what went wrong, and what can we do to prevent things that went wrong, or how can we capitalize on things that went right? So it's a fun challenge, and every year is different. So we never get the same result. So it's cool.
Yeah.
What's kind of cool, better than for us is like, these decisions aren't made by Mike and John and myself. The decisions of what we're going to do with the growing and changing of the growing or different procedures are done by our growers and all the people that are out in the greenhouse. That's why we ask them, because they're there. We make the decisions on, who writes the check and whatnot, but it's those kinds of decisions and what we're going to add to the facility and improve the facility better for their growing and for our customers.
That partnership that you talk about between management and production it sounds like it's very critical to this whole process. Mike, you also used the word partnership in talking about how you work with a company like Biotherm, and I would imagine that's important for them too, so that these companies aren't just developing technology that they think is going to work and then they take it out to the market. Having these conversations with growers like yourselves, so they know what your needs are, so they're developing technology that makes the most sense for what a company like Plantpeddler would need.
Yeah, that's the critical part. I can't talk specifically, but we've been on a 5-year partnership with a major on a new tool for growers in the greenhouse. I guess I could say it's a pest ID platform, but there's that partnership, I always liken it to this, you know, Plantpeddler sits on a island out in the middle of the ocean. There's no reason for people to come to Cresco. We are not located on a interstate highway for a fast track. So we've really worked hard to be a solid partner with anyone on both sides of the supply chain. So the people that feed us, both from genetics to all of the hard materials and soft materials it takes to run this greenhouse, are truly our partners. If we help them be successful, that helps us be successful. So that's paramount to our overall performance as a company, that we have strong relationships and long-term relationships. You know, we go back to 1984 with Biotherm, and nobody else has had a heating tool in here but Biotherm during all of our growth period, because we formed a strong partnership in the very beginning. You go through good times and bad, it's like a marriage, but you realize at the end of the day that you're both better together than apart, and that's true of many of our relationships with many of the companies we work with for all of the years we've been out there. I think one other thing, though, that's interesting, tells you a little about the tech side. We have one of our leads who runs our planting lines is so fast that she forced us to invest in new set-down robots, because the current robots that are from the early 2000s aren't fast enough to keep up. So John has a couple new robots on order just to keep up to the efficiency of our staff. Most people would slow down to the robot speed, but not Jafar.
She pushed the envelope, so.
It's an interesting situation to have in. Yeah,
Very good problem to have.
Yeah.
exactly. You know, I want to go back to one other point that John made a few minutes ago. You mentioned Plantpeddler being one of the first to implement the Oasis system, and that was leading me to think, you know, so there are some growers that consider themselves early adopters of technology. They want to be one of the first to try something new. You know, there's others that might, you know, want to wait and see, you know, make sure that something's proven in the market before they jump into it. Where do you see Plantpeddler falling into that scale?
Bleeding edge.
You know, typically we're on the edge of it, but you know, there's certain things that we've kind of cooled our jets and waited on. The ISO robot investment was one of them. I mean, Dad and I looked at those 5 or 6 years ago in Europe before we made the purchase. I mean, you know, there's certain things where, you know, we see the advantage, and there's a defined, like, okay, yeah, we can make it work, or you know, we know that being on the bleeding edge comes with headaches. You know, it's not going to be easy. When you are on the bleeding edge, you know, have the growing pains of just yourself and the company you're working with. But there is also times where you got to kind of step back and say, okay, is it the right investment? Is it, you know, does it make sense? Can we deal with the growing pains? Are we better off giving that to somebody else and learning from them? But, you know, so it's, at most times I would say we're on the bleeding edge, but there are times where it's, you know, we've had to kind of maybe pump the brakes and make sure that, you know, we are prepared for it. Internally in the company, we have the staff that can handle that mission. Financially is one thing, but you know, it all comes with a consequence or a learning curve, and you just want to be prepared. You can't always be on the bleeding edge and expect people like Jason to stick around for 25 years, because at some point in time he's going to get sick of our antics of always throwing them in the fire. But you know,
there's a responsibility. I feel responsibility. You know, they give me these tools. It's big investments for the company, and I feel that, you know, it's my responsibility to use them to make it an advantageous situation for the company. It's just, you know, pay return on investment. So like what John said, I mean, if you were constantly giving me things, it would be difficult sometimes. So I think we do a really good job at decision making and say, okay, hey, you know, like the Metazebs, I mean, that we look at it and it completely makes sense, because it solves so many problems that we had, you know, with the old echoes, you know, rehanging and underwater, overwatered, stuff like that. OSHA, hanging off the top of a boom, hanging 5,000 baskets in an afternoon. That isn't fun. So it's those things. Even lighting right now, where we've got several different forms of lighting. We took out some of our old HPS lighting. We put in LED lighting, but we also got some new generation HPS.
HPS.
Yeah, HPSs. And even we had some hard learning curves with those, but we're all same thing with all the people that come here and the people that Mike and Rachel and Plantpeddler has become tied to over the years. If I say lights right now, I can make 10 phone calls to experts in the industry that know Plantpeddler and that are absolutely more than willing to help me figure out the best way to use those.
And I think a little bit of that bleeding edge too comes with maturity. So 84 we put in the first northern biotherm system ever put in. So like very front end. I mean, we put in computers in the greenhouse, 1984, actually built by Biotherm to run the company. We had some of the first environmental control systems. Over time, and when we built this facility we're sitting in, there was like a dozen world's firsts. A lot of it was bleeding edge. Now we think a little bit longer about that investment. What's the real ROI look like? What's the downside risk? So we've probably matured more in that thought process. We still want to be out there. Super important that as a company that we maintain very innovative and maintain our position of leadership from innovation standpoint. But you also have to temper that with making sure that it's in best interest of Plantpeddler and the team of people that are part of this company.
Sure, I understand that completely. So we've talked, a lot to this point about, some of the big things that Plantpeddler has done these past couple of years, things you've learned along the way and what's coming up next. So I kind of want to close things out by, if you look into 2024 and beyond, and maybe we can even just kind of go around the table on this one, for each of you, what excites you the most about the future of this industry? What are you most looking forward to? What gets you the most excited?
Oh, I think that in the future of this industry, horticulture in general, I think we did get a bit of a boost from COVID, like some companies did. We had, people gardening and doing things outside and exploring that horticulture that hadn't before, and being able to just continue to get out there and make sure that we stay top of mind. I'd like to hope that our trialing and the things that we do to help make sure that at consumer end, all the plants that we're putting out there perform well for people, keeps them involved in the industry. Also, the educators event that we did will probably be every other year that we do that, and seeing if there's a possible future impact on that. There's so many kids out there that, maybe they're in high school right now. They don't know if they want to do something in agriculture, something with plants, but their family doesn't own a family farm. Horticulture is an avenue where you can get into it and be an owner of a business and have a greenhouse or a garden center. And it's not as big an investment as trying to go out and buy acres of land and giant equipment. So there's a lot of possibilities, I think, for the future for us to affect more people with horticulture.
Right now, we have a biotherm tech guy on site running through some boiler systems that we have right now. We found a few flaws that have been there for a while. So right now, my excitement is maybe that's going to run more efficiently and I get some better sleep on minus 20 below night next year. But no, it's
that's reality.
Yeah, that's reality. I'm really excited about that. Yep. So I'm same thing. Like with the tools that we talked about that we have brought into Plantpeddler, my excitement is my goal as head grower, production facility manager is just I love seeing things run efficiently, and I love seeing people enjoy the final product going out the door. That if it's there's times when things go out the door that are difficult, whether something got overgrown, it needs a little trimming, it doesn't fit on the cart, it doesn't fit in the sleeve, if it's a poinsettia, it doesn't fit in the box, it doesn't fit on the truck. Those moments to me those aren't good moments. So I just with with things we talked about today, whether it's people helping plant, if it's experts, if it's consultants, if it's tools that we brought in, just continually making every crop at Plantpeddler perfect, maybe, perfect, or just great, just something that you're proud to see it go on the truck, on the cart, on the truck, and to the consumer, and then you get some of the best days are the ones that you get the end users, the recipients of those plants, return emails to especially to the sales, fewer problem emails and more.
Yeah.
Happy ones.
Well, we get a lot of happy ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of happy ones, and those go a long way.
I would say for the future is just looking at the new genetics that are coming online. I mean, it's keep looking at it during the trials. It's like people want to produce a larger flower on a calabacoa, but then they want a smaller flower on a petunia, and the genetics are going backwards. And I'm like, okay, so will we some year have a calabacoa that'll grow just like a petunia, so you won't have to worry about it turning yellow? And just weird things like that. Everything is changing, and I also am looking forward to taking some time off, and so that's kind of more of excitement for me than anybody else. So
That's exciting for me too.
yeah. And I have grandkids, so I get to take care of them every once in a while.
Awesome.
Nikki, you want to throw something in there?
Yeah, I think I'm most excited about all the new genetics too. Just something cool and creative that comes through, and it's cool watching it grow out in the greenhouse. I like Jason said, I like having nice stuff that goes out, and I'm excited to see what our next spring is going to be like.
And not the next disease.
And not the next disease, yeah. Going into another season, I'm ready to have no problem.
This is when we hold our breath because it's the start of rutting season, so.
Oh, yeah.
Usually things pop up now. Johnny?
Not under our control.
I think, looking forward, the advancements just in horticulture as a whole, as the industry, pushing the envelope whether it's AI or other technologies that get brought in. I think it's cool that we keep pushing the envelope, and where we can utilize that at Plantpeddler to better produce higher quality stuff, or just our amount that we get out of our facility is crazy to me. So any tool that we can put in that's out on the market, I think is kind of cool coming at us.
Innovation always improves. And making quality of life for the people that work here better. I think that's a big step. I mean, I look back to the people like Jason and Stacy and, of course, Rachel and I when we started and what we did compared to what we do. We have a number of measures, of tools we use, and one is labor hours and labor costs to gross revenue and those kind of factors. And we've been able to effectively basically triple our labor efficiency in the last 3 to 4 years. And that means that people are working better. We're able, with what we've been able to do, to get people out of here more for extra time. We used to get stuck on a lot of Saturdays, and most Fridays. This whole last 6 cycle, we've been able to get people out of here on Fridays and really improve people's family life, because at the end of the day, we all live together at work. Most of our waking hours of this primary team is together. But we sure want that balance of life. It's really important. And I think that's what's exciting to me. We have, in the 43 years of Plantpeddler, we have the best team of people really we've ever had in place. We've had a really good crop of young people in the company that are going to come and help support John in the future as Rachel and I mature out of the company. I think that's the really important part, is sit poised in a very good position to take this company to the next level. That's the most exciting thing for me as being founder owner, that we have the opportunity to carry this generationally and pass the torch to another group of people. And it is very true. I think the industry is at a great point. We have people that are bringing innovation in. We see great opportunities ahead to improve what we do as an industry, as a company. And I hope that we can accomplish the tasks that we've set out to do, to be the best. Not necessarily the biggest, we just like to be the best.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating, as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.